Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
And greetings. Thank you so much for joining me, Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. And we have been doing so right here on WHPC many decades. I believe we started here in 1989, so it's quite a while. And we're so happy to bring on board our guest for today, and that is Mr. John Allocca. John is a medical research scientist and biophysicist with over 40 years of experience. He is the internationally published author of over 58 books, including the Neurotransmitter Solution for Migraine, Depression, and more, Starship Diabetes, and the book we'll be looking into today, a new one called Cookbook for the Mind. Dr. Allocca developed a computerized biochemical analysis and nutritional plan software program and nutritional formulas for migraine prevention and other disorders. His previous work includes a computerized neonatal diagnostic system, a method for measuring intracranial pressure and vascular compliance noninvasively, the development of a computerized medical diagnostic system, and rehabilitative instruments. His biography can also be found in Who's Who in Science and Who's Who in the World. To find Dr. Allocca after today's show, you can always go on our archive because we'll have links to his website. His website is Allocca, ALLOCCA.com, and also drjohnphotography.com, which reflects on another of his many areas of expertise. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Allocca.
Hi.
So first of all, let's go back in time and share with our listeners what made you want to become a scientist?
I always wanted to be a scientist, even as a child, young child.
What do you think inspired you to do that?
I don't know.
Okay,
when I
so
could walk, I was just always interested in science.
Now, you have so many interesting things in this book, Cookbook for the Mind. First of all, how did you come up with that as a title?
Well, the book kind of came together out of things that I've done over the years, photography, spirituality, and so many different things. And I was trying to figure out how can I put this all together. Some of the things are just so diverse. Buddhism and photography. They go together, but yet they're pretty, different. So then finally I came up with the idea after days and days of trying to find a title of a cookbook for the mind. And then I said recipes include brain biofield technology, photography, Buddhism, yoga, and shamanism.
Right. That's what's right on the cover. And I have to say that is a pretty huge span of all kinds of different information.
Yeah. They are related, though,
Okay. Well, I don't know. That's why you're,
okay.
You're the expert. Because, for instance, let's first look at photography, because I know that's an intense love of yours, and you have a whole website just about photography. Why do you feel photography is so inspirational and something that you love to teach to others?
Well, it started in 2009. Well, by the way, also in 1990, 89, 90, 91, I studied at the New Seminary in New York City and became an interfaith minister and studied all the major religions. So I had a kind of background in religious science. And shamanism seemed to always stand out for me. So in 2009, I decided to do a vision quest and following the medicine wheel, the shamanic medicine wheel. So I used my camera as a tool for this vision quest. And I traveled upstate, and I traveled different places. And then in 2018, I decided to repeat it, that vision quest again. And actually, the 2018 journey that I wrote about was written as I was doing the journey. So it has more information than the 2009 because the 2009 was written from memory. And I think it's a great tool using the medicine wheel and photography to really see, your inner self and how things reflect. I did a group about 30 years ago called Spirituality Through Photography and Art, because I feel that art can reflect your inner self and sometimes what you want, For example, one time in the group, I said to the group, it was just before the holidays, we won't be meeting for a month, so what I want you to do is, for the previous year, represent in photography or art what the year meant to you. And then for the next assignment, represent in photography and art what you want the year to be. So this brings up a lot of stuff. People have to think about their own internal process and then represent it in art. And I chose photography because it's one of the easiest ways to express art, especially today. Almost everyone has a cell phone with a camera in it, so it's very easy to take a picture. But in my group, sometimes people would draw. They were artists and they would draw. But like I said, the photography is the easiest. Everyone has a camera in their cell phone.
Nowadays, that's true. But those cameras are not like your camera. I mean, I see a picture of your camera in the book, Cookbook for the Mind. You're going to get a whole different aspect.
Yeah, but the program is not about the quality of the picture. It's about the content, you see.
That's really good. So it's about maybe what the viewer is experiencing at the time, because they're not necessarily putting this in an art exhibit.
Yes, exactly. There's no critique on, when I was doing the group, there was no critique about the photographs themselves, only what they brought up.
For that person.
Yeah, right.
And then once they've done that, in terms of stimulating the mind, besides the photography, how does the brain biofield fit in with our discussion?
Okay, that's actually my most recent technological breakthrough, which includes 30 years of research into the brain and how the brain functions. And it actually had to, this particular system that I have now had to be put together on a computer because it involved several things at the same time. And the first part of it was the bilateral stimulation. And I feel that one of the problems that people have is often the left brain doesn't talk to the right brain, and the left brain can interpret a stressful situation one way, the right brain can interpret a situation a different way, so that that situation, that stressful situation, doesn't get resolved because the two brains can't agree on how to resolve it. So it becomes unresolved, and it goes on. So getting the two halves of the brain to talk to each other is one aspect of it. Okay, the second aspect of, another aspect of the system that I put together involves a biofield. In other words, like, your heart puts out an electrical field, okay? Your brain puts that's called an EKG. Your brain puts out an EEG, and that's called a biofield. Well, the brain itself has a very complex biofield, but that biofield does interact with external stimuli. So what I do is after 30 years, I've finally decided and figured out how the brain works with certain things, doing EEGs and analyzing EEGs and stimulation and so on and so forth. So there are certain patterns, audio patterns that are put into it that cause the brain to resonate with. And some people have it's changed their lives completely. And of course, the main purpose of it is relaxation, but it seems to go way beyond just relaxation.
Well, I want to remind our listeners that you are listening to Herbally Yours right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, and today my guest is Dr. John Allocca. That's Allocca. You can find out more at allocca.com. And today we're talking about one of his many books called Cookbook for the Mind. And one of the things he talks about is brain biofield technology. That's what we're discussing right now. Now, how would someone, let's say, determine what's going on with their brain biofield? And how would they bring it into let's say, a more compatible vibration?
Well, I guess basically how they handle stress. Are you handling stress very well? Does somebody say something to you that sets off a trigger and you start getting angry or depressed or whatever? If you're being set off by something, then there might be things that are unresolved, or the way, like I said, maybe the left and right brain are not handling it as one brain, and so on and so forth.
Now, what is the brainicity system?
That's the brain biofield. Yeah, the whole title is Brainicity Brain Biofield System.
Okay, and this is a system that you developed?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, it involved a special machine that I built to create the various tones and frequencies. And then those are recorded, and then they're put into a computer and assembled in a certain way in a computer. And then the end result is that I put it on a CD. So a person doesn't have to spend thousands of dollars on equipment. They just simply buy a CD and listen to it.
So that makes it really simple, and we're going to talk about that more, because this particular system, the Brainicity system, has been shown to have some really profound healing when people are stressful or for attention deficit disorder. And of course, you've done so much work on headaches, and you find that when people listen to this CD, it might reduce headaches. And it's very good for people with PTSD. And I believe, for various people who are veterans, right? And,
yes.
And what's your experience with veterans?
I haven't had any that I know of. I don't know. The system sells on Amazon, so I don't always get feedback from people. But now and then I get an email from people telling me that it changed their lives and so on and so forth. But generally, the sales aren't directly from me, so it's hard to get feedback. I've done, people that are sort of friends and relatives of theirs, and so on and so forth.
Well, how about your personal experience in terms of being a veteran?
Well, it certainly made me more relaxed.
And what part of the armed forces do you have experience in?
Marines.
Well, that's very worth sharing.
Yeah.
That's very worth sharing, Dr. Allocca, because you yourself were a Marine. And, we all know what kind of, let's say, training that those people go through. Even just boot camp alone is pretty traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you are a top-level scientist who has brought something like this system, Brainicity, to the public. And then, as a scientist, you made it very accessible by really simplifying the system. Well, we're going to take a little break right here. And I'd like to remind you that you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Listen live online at nccradio.org or on iHeartRadio. For more information on today's guest or topic, you can email us at whpc@ncc.edu. Stay tuned. Herbally Yours will be right back.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
And Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. This is Ellen Kamhi, and our guest today is Dr. John Allocca, Allocca, and we're talking about lots of things, including his latest book, Cookbook for the Mind, with recipes that include brain biofield technology, photography, Buddhism, yoga, and shamanism. That certainly is a very large umbrella here in this Cookbook for the Mind, Dr. Allocca.
Yes, it includes a lot of things.
What I really like now, I just want to share with our listeners that I personally have tried what you are talking about, the Brainicity or Neuropath CD. If someone was looking for it, what is it actually called? Because it seems to have lots of names.
Brainicity.
Okay. So I personally have tried that. And also, I actually worked with individuals who not only tried it, but we were able to measure changes in some really physical and quantifiable parameters. So perhaps that's due to the reduction in stress and anxiety. But we have actually seen things happen when people have been just take this CD and listen to it. It's a really easy thing to do. In terms of relaxation, yes. Bringing down the stress response, yes. But we've even seen people who were having difficulty hearing after a neurologist fully evaluated them and knew there was no physical way that they could explain these various hearing losses. And yet, after they listened to this Brainicity CD for a while, perhaps there was a relaxation in the muscles around the nerves. We don't know exactly the mechanism of action, but they were able to actually hear a whole lot better. So it really has no negative side effects that I've ever heard of. Have you, Dr. Allocca?
No. The worst case is that it did nothing.
Right. If someone had, no change, which is probably interesting for me myself, seeing as I'm one of those people who's very blessed. Not that I don't have stress in my life, I have plenty, but I don't seem to be too hyperreactive about the stress. I kind of let it go, or maybe I'm ignoring it. I don't know. So for someone like myself, sort of starting at a place of not feeling stressed, I don't have any attention deficit disorder and those kinds of things that other people might struggle with. So for me, what I found is I would not say it did nothing. I would say it did not necessarily get rid of an issue, seeing as I didn't have an issue, but it certainly helped me sleep better. And the other thing I found happening after using it for a while was that I actually became more ambidextrous. So
Yes.
How would you explain that?
Well, because now your left and right brain both are functioning rather than just actually, they've done a study not too long ago, and they found that whether a person becomes left-handed or right-handed is really a matter of choice when they're a child. It has nothing to do with the brain itself. It's a matter of choice. So if you're thinking more with one side of your brain, you'll choose, the other side of your brain to use as a right hand or left hand, and so on and so forth. So if the two halves of the brain are talking to each other, then you can use either hand.
Right. And so that was very interesting to me. It was just an interesting experience that I had after, listening to the Brainicity. And I think at this point you've put actually soothing music as part of it as well.
Yeah, just the music is just to make it more interesting. It has nothing technologically to do with it, just, to make it more interesting. So they're not just sitting there listening to tones and getting bored.
Right. So, it's kind of relaxing rather than just listening to the tones. I think that was a really good idea. Now, you have so many things in this book, such as something called the Genesis Meditation. What is the Genesis Meditation about?
Okay. I actually developed that as part of a workshop 30-something years ago. And it's just to teach people who've never meditated before. There's many different methods. There's the mudra meditation, so on and so forth. But it's just a simple meditation that anyone can follow and do. It's not required as part of the program. Just like I also put in there desktop yoga, which is, I call it desktop yoga because you can sit at a desktop and do it. And it's a 10-minute routine. It's a very easy routine to do. It's not part of the program. It's just put in there if you want to do it or don't want to do it. But it's really good. I've integrated yoga into my daily routine. I don't just sit there doing a half-hour yoga anymore. I just integrate it into my daily routine. And that's something you can do with the desktop yoga. It's something you can do with the Genesis meditation, is kind of integrate it into your daily routine.
So do you have any kind of tape or program that walks people through this?
Well, it's a guided meditation. You follow what it says in the book.
Okay. So it's actually something that people can initiate. If they look at the book, they might want to use something like the Genesis meditation. So there's so many wonderful techniques in here, and I'd like to remind you that you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, and today my guest is Dr. John Allocca, research scientist, and he's sort of sharing with us a lot of information. He has written 58 books, but we're talking today about Cookbook for the Mind, which brings a lot of complex information into something that's very, very easy to read. And I think that's something that you really shine at, Dr. Allocca, because you have sometimes, let's say, much more of an in-depth understanding being a research scientist than other people might have, but you really strive to bring the information into something that's accessible for just the general population and very easy to read.
Yes, and actually the very last chapter of the book, I said, well, since this is a cookbook, I should put in recipes. So I put in some recipes for dessert.
I know, I noticed that because that's another specialty of yours in terms of actually cooking.
Yes, yes.
And do I hear a puppy in the background there by any chance? I thought I heard a little bit of a puppy barking back there.
No, I have the door closed because if she hears somebody at the front door, she starts screaming.
But there is a puppy there.
Yeah. Well, she's 6 years old.
Yeah. So I wanted to know about what you're talking about with some of these desserts, because you have excellent recipes like gluten-free desserts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, something called almond cookies, you wouldn't really think about that as being gluten-free.
Right. I don't like using preservatives and all kinds of junk. I'm also not a fan of stevia. So instead, I either use baking powder.
For a sweetener, what would you suggest?
Either sugar or fructose is what I'm usually. Although some of these recipes don't have any sweetener, like the apple cashew dessert. You're using coconut, you're using strawberries and nuts, apples. So you don't need any sugar in that because you're already sweetening it with other things. The rice pudding, on the other hand, that you do need a little sweetener. So either fructose or sugar.
Well, there's good choices in sugar right now because there are sugars that are organically sourced, because any regular thing that just says sugar is going to be from genetically modified beets. But there's a lot in even the regular grocery store now that will say organic sugar, and that's going to be from organically grown sugar cane. Right. Or organically grown beets. So that's, one way that you can do that. And of course, you don't have to put in that much. And if somebody does like stevia, they can use stevia. And one thing I'll say about stevia is there's many kinds on the marketplace. What you actually want is something that's a brown liquid. What you don't want is something that looks like a white powder, which is the commercial stevia that's really only a stevia side isolated. It's not truly stevia. You can try growing stevia, by the way. Everywhere in our listening area, you can very easily grow it. It's a perennial plant in the warm locations, but it's an annual in places that aren't that warm. So we're coming to the end of our time together, but I would love you to give out your information to our listeners.
Okay. I just wanted to add one more thing to it. I spoke about the 2009 journey that I did and the 2018 journey that I did. And then following that, I give you exercises to do your own journey and questions that you might want to ask and so on and so forth. So at the end of the book, there's a guidance through how to do your own journey.
Well, that's very, very useful for anybody who wants to do more self-study and really be more in control of their life and their life experience. So what's the best way for people to find you, Dr. Allocca?
Well, there's Allocca.com because Allocca.com has everything in it. It talks about the brainicity. I even show EEGs from studies that I did, how it increases alpha waves and so on. And then there are, in the book section, there are links. If you click on it, you go to Amazon, and then you can make a purchase of either the CDs, the books, and so on.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us for today and all the great work that you're doing.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning into Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamhi at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.